What's up, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, and the broader markets. I'll break down some important things that came out involving Tesla news. What President Trump just said about Tesla is very important, and what you should be watching for as time goes on, as we're seeing some updates that could be very, very beneficial. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link that's down below, or sign up with my QR code that's right over here. Moomoo is an amazing global brokerage that consists of many exclusive offers. If you sign up and deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $2,000, you're guaranteed 25 in total. And deposit $5,000, you're guaranteed 60 free stocks. The offer ends at the end of July in just about 11 days from now. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with this market. So when you look at Tesla, okay, we have a very, very nice pattern right now. Tesla's making higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows, and continuing to uptrend just like this. So if we do see some kind of like consolidation on Monday, we should try to continue this push going into the end of the day, if not by Tuesday, as Tesla's once again looking more bullish and respecting an upwards channel, looking quite strong in my personal opinion. On top of this, when you look at the daily time frame, it's looking bullish, very, very strong looking daily candlesticks, and it could be trying to get back up to this resistance right over here. If you draw out a trend line like this, that's going to be around that, the 340s, which is where Tesla could be going for on the daily time frame. So there is potential to go higher on Tesla, in my opinion. And then on the weekly time frame, it also looks quite bullish, once again favoring an attempt to get back up towards the 340s at the very least. So everything on Tesla is looking more bullish, the weekly, the daily, and the 4-hour, and we're respecting an uptrend approaching earnings. So that's a good sign so far. However, when you look at the way people are viewing Tesla, especially the different analysts out there, they're not very bullish on Tesla. They're in fact more bearish, and they're worried that Tesla's not going to be doing too well because of what's going on. So, for those out there who are saying in the comments that there's no reason for Tesla to be bullish, it's completely understandable. I understand where you guys are coming from. But even if that's the case, we could still run quite a bit approaching earnings, and we're gonna have to see what happens afterwards. Because even after earnings, if Tesla announces, some big news about their products, the robotaxi expansion, the share price could still run, even if you feel like there's no reason for it to. That's how the stock market works. Sometimes you may think there's no reason for the market to pump and just keeps going because the market is full of manipulation, and you have to remember that as time goes on. So let's talk about the news, and I'll break down more details about Tesla stock. As you guys know, it's still looking more bullish, and we're still favoring more upside. So the first thing that's worth mentioning is that there's a lot of headlines saying that Raj, the new guy that has been hired for their tech sales, he does not have traditional sales experience, and he's getting lots of criticism for that. However, like I said before, we cannot just judge a person and just say they're not qualified and this and that. Tesla did not just hire him for no reason. He definitely knows what he's doing, and he has amazing ideas, in my opinion. I think he could do a fantastic job. Also, correlation does not mean causation. So even if Tesla's sales are not the strongest, you can't completely just blame the sales teams. It also has to do with, a lot of political scrutiny that Elon Musk is getting, higher interest rates, and other factors outside of their control. So, I want to put it that way, but at the same time, with the incentives that are coming out, I think there's a very good chance we might see a boost in sales, at least for the Q3 period, because of this news right here. And that could be beneficial. And then also with Raj, we have to give him a chance, right? Give him a chance. Let's see how he does before we make any judgments. That's the best thing I would really tell you guys. And although correlation does not mean causation, there is something that could benefit Tesla. So, as you guys know, under President Trump's big, beautiful bill, or that's what he calls it, there's going to be an end to the EV mandate. And then there's also going to be an end to the tax credits by September 30th. So, Tesla's using this as a sales incentive to incentivize people to buy up their Teslas, buy up their cars before September 30th, before the deadline for the EV tax credits. And I think this could really benefit sales in America. This is going to be very, very big, and I think that's going to be some huge news. And then on top of this, different analysts have different views. Most analysts are saying to buy and hold Tesla, but there are a lot of analysts that are downgrading Tesla right now because they're very, very nervous. They're very apprehensive about the earnings coming up because Tesla sales did go down a bit. And there is a lot of fear that their margins are going to be even worse than before. The margins could get worse. So we'll see how that goes for Tesla. I just wanted to put that out there. Now, Goldman Sachs, they're giving Tesla a neutral rating. They're kind of like in the middle with Tesla. The price-price ratio is still going up, though. This is showing that we're building some strength relative to the markets. So that's a good sign. And then Mondays do tend to be green historically 52% of the time. Tuesdays are also green about almost 52% of the time, so keep that in mind. And we'll see how things end up going as time goes on. So that's going to be very key, at least for now. So, what's my view? We are still looking more bullish amidst all this data. The overall market may slow down a little bit on Monday before it tries to bounce again, but I think Tesla may follow the same trend. Now, there are people out there who are saying that instead of like a channel, this could also be resembling kind of like a rising wedge. If we kind of like delete some of these lines, let me show you another perspective of Tesla, at least approaching their earnings. Other people believe that this might not be like a channel, but more of a like rising wedge like this, and that Tesla's going to be looking for downside instead, right? You could also redraw it like this. So even if we do rally approaching earnings, I would warn you to be careful just in case, right? Earnings could go either way depending on if they launch us or if we get a big rug pull, depending on how their sales look. We had an analyst saying that their sales might not be the best, and we might see a decline in their overall sales expectation for the end of the year. So we'll see about that. All right. So I'll go over the hypotheticals in just a couple of minutes. I first want to talk about the news, then we'll go over what's likely going to happen. But for now, we are still bullish approaching earnings, so keep that in mind. So, what's happening so far? Let's actually go over this. Heading into tomorrow is going to be Monday, July 21st. At 10 a.m., we have some minor data. Then at 11:30, we have some bill auctions. It's all very, very minor. However, on Tuesday, we have the big guy, Jerome Powell, giving a speech. That's going to be very important. It could be very impactful for markets, especially since we saw the last inflationary reading go up, right? CPI for all items went up quite a bit. And then for core CPI, went up just a little bit. And then for the Fed, also keep in mind that there's a 95% chance to keep rates the same during the next FOMC meeting. On Wednesday, it's going to be very quiet, just some home sales data. And then Thursday, we have some important manufacturing numbers. I'll talk more about those later. But for now, Monday is going to be very quiet for data. And then Tuesday is going to be a lot more impactful. Besides that, we also have earnings. So we have Verizon announcing earnings on Monday. On Tuesday, we have Coca-Cola and a few more like GM. Wednesdays when we have Tesla and Alphabet, so keep those in mind. We're going to have to see what happens as time goes on. This is what the earnings calendar looks like, so we'll see if that causes more volatility. Now, when it comes to President Trump, he says that he wants to renegotiate the USMCA. That's going to be very important for Canada and Mexico as negotiations are continuing. But it's also been said that Canada has been difficult to deal with so far, according to the White House. So keep that in mind. Also, the Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick clarified something. So basically, there's an August 1st deadline for a lot of these tariffs, and I'll show you guys what they look like in just a minute. But what's happening is with what's going on, okay, we have these high tariffs that are going to be coming on August 1st, but that's just the deadline for the tariffs to start. Countries could still negotiate even after August 1st. So it's not like that's going to be the end of the world. But if they don't get their deals done by then they're going to be subjected from high tariffs, at least from that point on, until they could forge some kind of deals or not. Also, President Trump sent out letters to 150 different countries with 10% tariffs to be imposed, especially on smaller nations. And then there's also been these higher tariffs on like Chinese graphite and also on copper. That could greatly affect Tesla, especially graphite, which is very important for their batteries, affecting companies like Panasonic, which help supply our batteries. So keep that in mind. President Trump also criticized Jerome Powell, saying he wants to see rates at 1.5%. He says Powell is too slow again. The same things that were said before. He typically talks about him before the big speeches have to be made, so keep that in mind. And last but not least, when it comes to our policies, okay, right now Indonesia is subjected to a 19% tariff, Vietnam 20%, the UK 10%, and then the EU, Mexico, and Canada all have like 30 to 35% tariffs. As of right now, they're going to be charged that much by August 1st unless they form some deals beforehand, or if the deals come afterwards, that could also change them. But for now, this is what's going to be scheduled. Brazil also has a 50% tariff, which is why the president is open to negotiations, so keep that in mind. With that being said, that's it for all the news I wanted to go over. Now I just want to focus on the charts and nothing else. So when we look at Tesla, like I said before, we're in this channel making higher highs and higher lows, and the uptrend is going to likely continue. Now, if you're a bear, you want to see Tesla basically fail at this trend line right down here and lose 315. If 315 fails this, there's going to be a risk of us dipping quite a bit more. But if you're a big bull, you want to see us basically continue to respect this uptrend and push for an attempt for basically 333 to 337. That's going to be like the more bullish case. My gut tells me that what's going to likely happen is we continue to uptrend, making higher highs and higher lows. And heading into tomorrow, I think Tesla consolidates a bit as the market dips, and then it's going to slowly try to make its way up for 335 to 336 to continue this uptrend in this bullish channel. Now, if you're in the camp that this is not a bullish channel, this is more of a rising wedge, right? You could make that argument. You could kind of like redraw this that way. You could also argue that it's going to just do something like this. It kind of tells us the same story that Tesla's going to see a bit of a pullback slash dip to like 325 in consolidation before it starts to uptrend for 340. And then once we get to earnings, there could be a big rug pull coming. So keep that in mind for Tesla. We are still bullish, whether it's a rising wedge or a channel. We're still bullish, approaching the big earnings. But then after earnings, we have to be very careful. We're going to have to see what happens with Tesla's margins and their sales, what happens with their overall expectations and their guidance. So we're going to have to wait and see how things end up going for then. So for now, don't worry too much about the volatility until we get earnings on Wednesday. Otherwise, we're going to likely see some consolidation and somewhat of an uptrend, at least approaching earnings in my personal opinion. So once again, for tomorrow, look for some consolidation, a retest of 325 possibly, and then slowly we should uptrend for closer to 340 as we get closer to Wednesday. So odds still favor upside for Tesla as long as you don't lose 315. So keep those levels in mind and watch your supports and resistances. I have marked everything right over here for you guys, so keep that in mind. Now, what else could benefit Tesla is the overall market. And once again, guys, I'm not saying Tesla's going to explode forever. It could still run even after earnings if it gets some very, very good news about their products and such. But if we uptrend really hard approaching earnings and this continues, I would be very, very cautious. I want to be very, very clear about that. So let me just clarify that for you guys. Anyways, looking at SPY, now every time we're dipping, we dipped right over here. Then we just got bought back up. We dipped, got bought back up over and over again. So odds favor if we do dip again, we're going to get bought back up in this channel. That's what I'm anticipating. Now, if you're really bullish, you want to see us break past the 630 area to uptrend harder. If we lose 622, we're looking for a much larger dump. But my guts tells me 625 to 623 could be tested. Then we'll see if we bounce off that or not to continue this uptrend. That's what I'm anticipating on SPY for now. On the QQQ, we're making higher highs and higher lows as well, looking quite bullish, and this is going to likely continue to uptrend. Now, if we're bearish, you want to see us basically fail at 550 in case there's really bad news. If 552 to 550 fails, let's expect some downside. If we're bullish, you want to see us break 565 to continue the uptrend. But my guts tells me that this is going to be dipping to like 558 to 555 into this range right over here. Then we should be looking for a bounce after that. I think the odds favor this. There's going to be a support like this, and we could be kind of like testing that as support. So look for a small pullback tomorrow towards 558 to 555. Then we're going to be looking for a big bounce and a continuation higher as the most likely possibility. On the IWM, we're also trading sideways. Now, one concern is the possibility of a head and shoulders, left shoulder, head, and right shoulder. Now, could this be the head and shoulders here, or are we about to just see some sideways price action? My gut tells me that every time we're hitting 226, we reject, but as we hit 218, we like to bounce. We could dip towards that 218 area, then bounce back up and just continue to trade sideways. But as of right now, I see a lot of sideways price action. Not really a whole lot going on with this. I think the odds do favor that, at least for now. On ES, we have support right here at 6,300, and we have resistance around 6,350. My guts tells me this may reject here and possibly dip a little bit lower towards the lower 6,300s. So we're going to see if we bounce or dump. So keep those levels in mind. We might be dipping a bit more, and we'll see if we could bounce off 6,300 off ES. It is likely going to be bullish as time goes on, depending on the news that comes out. But look for a small dip towards the lower 6,300s first before it tries to bounce. For NQ, we're going to be watching 23,100 to be tested. We need to bounce off this to continue the uptrend, but if we lose 23,000, we're looking for a bigger dip. My gut tells me this might dip here and try to bounce, so keep that in mind. For Bitcoin, we're also trading sideways. We also have a left shoulder, a head, and then a right shoulder. And then if we're making lower highs, we could be dipping all the way down below 116,000 to start dipping for 112,000. But if we break 120,000, we're looking for a bigger push, so just be very, very careful as time goes on. The head and shoulders still exists here, so be careful with Bitcoin. But I don't think it's going to pan out just like that. I think what's going to likely happen is that we trade sideways first. There might be a dip towards 117,000 or rebound, just some consolidation before it starts to dip lower. So please keep that in mind, especially as time goes on. Like I said about Tesla, we're bullish approaching earnings, so I think the odds favor this uptrend to continue. So please keep that in mind. Nvidia is going to likely be dipping back down towards 170, and we're going to see if we bounce off this or not. Could be retesting 170 and see if we bounce. If not, we could be dumping more to fill this gap. So watch 170 and we'll have to see how it goes from there. For Apple, we're looking bullish. If we end up losing 210, we're looking for a dump to 208. But as long as we hold this, we're going to be favoring 212 to 214. Favoring the upwards direction, we're going to have to see how it reacts from there. Netflix is making lower highs here. We're going to see if we get back above resistance. Otherwise, we're favoring 1180. So please keep that in mind. MSTR has a double top right here, if not a triple top. We might bounce a little bit back up towards this 440 area. We're going to see if we reject again. If we break 440, we're looking for a bigger bounce. If we hit this, we could reject and continue to fall towards like 420. Celsius may also dip towards 43.8. We're going to see buyers defend. And then for Supermicro, we could be dipping back down. We have to see if 52 holds. If not, we could be dipping towards 50. My gut tells me that 50 could be tested. Also, this gap fill area, we're going to see buyers defend. But I think there's going to be a small dip, just like Nvda, to fill that gap before we try to bounce. Palantir might be retesting 150.5. That's also going to be a very temporary pullback move, and we'll see if buyers could defend right there, very close to where the 20 EMA happens to be. For Rivian, we're looking more bullish, so long as we don't end up losing 13.5. We're favoring 14 as our potential targets. SoFi is going to test 21.45. We need to see if this bounces off this. It's still holding up very well thanks to good bank earnings. But if we lose 21.5, we're going to be dipping a bit more towards 20 flat. So watch this 21.5 to 20 area and see if we bounce off that. For AMD, just like Nvidia, they're all just following the same trend. I see 155 coming. It could go a little lower. There's this resistance becoming support at 147 in case 150 holds. So I could see 155 in case that doesn't hold. We could be dipping closer to about the lower 150s. Then we'll see if we bounce off that. It's still very possible we bounce, but there might be a small dip for semiconductors. ARM, same thing, might be retesting 151 to 153. Then we'll see if we bounce. It's still bullish in terms of the trend. Higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low. Might see a small dip before buyers step in as well. Palantir is looking bullish, favoring 75 as a potential target. Coinbase might be dipping, though, towards 403, and we're going to see if buyers defend. Look for a pullback to 403 and see if we can bounce off this or not. Amazon's looking bullish. If we lose 224, we're looking for a dip to 222, but so long as that holds, we're going to be favoring attempt to rebound for 227. Meta is going to likely be pushing for 705 to 712, and we're going to see if buyers defend here. Look for a push up here, and we'll see if we reject or not off this, but look for a small bounce for 708 to 712. Google's looking a bit more bullish. We're favoring 188 to 190 as our target, as long as we don't lose 183. If 183 fails, still I'm looking for 181, but I don't favor that. I think the odds favor upside for 188 plus, especially because of the bullish news that came out. And then Microsoft, and also I forgot to mention, Alphabet/Google also has earnings on Wednesday. And typically when you approach earnings, you're like a little bit more bullish for these big tech stocks. Microsoft, if we end up losing 507, we're looking for essentially 502. As long as this holds, though, we're going to be favoring basically 515. So please keep that in mind. TJT could be dipping all the way down towards this imbalance around 18.3. The VIX has this nice rejection here. We're going to see if we get back above 16.95. If we can't, what I think could happen to the VIX is this might consolidate as the market dips just a little bit before it starts to dip lower. And that could be a sign the market's going to bounce higher. So it might not be done with downside yet. And then there could be a massive bounce coming to markets later on. And then once again, we're going to see when the VIX forms a bottom. The 10-year is going to be affected by Powell's speech. Same thing with the dollar index. And crude is still trading sideways amidst the things going on around the world. So there's not really much going on. Anyways, I think Tesla's going to likely outperform the market and try to push temporarily, approaching its very important earnings, but no promises could be made about that. I think approaching earnings, we're looking bullish, but then afterwards, I don't know what's going to happen. It depends on what they announce. Will their sales expectations be the same? Will their margins decline, or will they just completely smash earnings? What's going to happen? We have to wait and see. Keep in mind the expectations are typically quite high for Tesla. And if they don't meet expectations, that makes things difficult sometimes. And then I showed you guys my charts yesterday. So historically, when we miss on earnings, most of the time Tesla does sell off. Sometimes it could bounce if we have like, some AI hype or something like that. And then when they beat on earnings, it's like 50-50. Half the time they do well, half the time they end up, dumping. But oftentimes when they do pump really hard, if we do pump really hard approaching earnings, there's a higher probability this might dump afterwards, like buy the rumors, sell the news. So let's see if this continues to pump. If it does, that could be a sign that we're getting ready for a pullback, especially if there's a possible rising wedge. But it depends, guys. And we can't make promises just based off patterns because earnings can be very unpredictable sometimes. So it all depends. Anyways, I'll talk more about earnings and Tesla later on in my video for tomorrow. I'll be back tomorrow morning before market open for another update. Until then, I just want to say I really wish you all the best. I hope you guys have a great rest of your guys' weekends. And I'll be back very soon tomorrow. Please have a good day, night, or evening wherever you guys are around the world. And I'll see you guys very soon in the next one. Thank you for listening. Tesla to the moon because the long term is still very bright. Despite all the short term downside you're seeing and all the fears, don't worry, guys. The long term is still very awesome for Tesla. I'm very excited for what the future holds. Thank you for listening and peace out.